What's up, assholes? It's race day in Thuile. We're at the bottom of stage one in a super interesting section of track. A few corners back to back to back that has a lot of line choice, and I'll kind of talk you through it top to bottom and then see how the top riders get on. It starts with a taped in chicane in really loose dirt. Then you come in over a rise, have to commit to a really gravelly right-hander. Then it opens up into an inside and outside line. There's a camber on the inside that you can kind of commit to, but the outside line's probably a little bit more safe, but it is kind of loose and fading away. Then both lines seem to converge to going inside over a root ball rise, and then it funnels into some hard braking into another inside outside line at a catch berm at the bottom, and then you have to set up and commit to another left-hander. So hope that all made sense. Let's see how the top riders handle this section. I've already seen a few different lines in here.
Nice one, Julie. Let's go. Fucking hell. Oh. Yeah, that's it, Jesse.
All right, we've made it to the bottom of stage two, another probably 10-minute plus stage, and we're at a classic EnduRo spec switchback.
All right, well, there didn't end up being much line choice on this one. Everyone was pretty much on the main line. So this corner kind of just comes down to execution. And what I thought was interesting is just paying attention to people's braking, because what matters in this corner is being off the brakes as early as you can be while still being controlled, and then getting on the pedals. It is downhill after this, but you can carry a lot more speed into this section if you get a few good strong pedal cranks in. And this is at the bottom of a 10-ish minute stage, so everyone here is pretty smoked at this point. And even though this corner isn't like super technical, you still have to be like quite precise and on point with your braking and getting the rear end to slide, just enough around the corner. Quite subtle differences here. Some people taking a foot off, some people not. Got some good foot plants here. Evan with a real nice scoot. But there's three of the top guys that did some cool stuff that I want to break down. Greg doing a little nose pivot. But the first is Dan Booker. So a lot of people were coming in and getting over the front to slide the rear around. Dan is way more off the back and doesn't slide his rear end around at all. And he kind of just rides his front around the arc of the corner and takes it way wider than everyone else, but carries good momentum and gets right on the pedals. And then Charles Murray. What is this? We've seen this one before. If you've watched the last tech breakdown from Canizet, Charles Murray does I don't know if this is a patented Richie Rude technique or if this is just a trick of the trade, but he does the full rotation pedal clip-in thing where he pedals a full rotation with his left foot, clips in with his right, and gets on the gas. And then Jesse kind of does a similar thing, comes in super aggressive, brakes hard. Jesse just rides with so much aggression and intensity, and then takes a foot out. And what I'm just impressed with is like how efficiently and accurately these guys are getting clipped in and on the pedals. It's one fluid motion straight on the gas. I never got that dialed with clips, and that's why I'm a flat pedals rider. Simple corner, but some subtle, impressive stuff going on with the top riders in the sport.
All right, we made it to the last stage, the night stage. I don't think this has ever happened in downhill or enduro, but we have a proper old school downhill track packed into 60 seconds. Grass turns up top, super steep and technical down there. Gonna try and hike the whole thing. Let's do it.
So this track starts off with some wide open, off camber grass turns out in the ski piste. And yeah, I rode this track in practice, so I have a bit of an idea what's going on from a rider's perspective. And yeah, these are always so hard to judge with your braking, trying to get turned. There's not a whole lot of traction, and I don't know, they're super fun. But then this corner is super tough. The hill kind of steepens up a little bit, and then there's a tight turn with a bit of a compression, and you have to get set up to go over this blind rise. So it's really tough to get your braking right and get turned while going over this compression, because it loads the suspension and can make your tires break away. And this rider here gets it really good, getting a bit of a drift beforehand, handling the compression, letting the rear end slide, and getting set up for the blind rise. And then after the rise, there's another one, and these are quite steep. This one's completely blind, and you have to get on like a couple tire width catch at the bottom. And I think this is Ed Masters here, setting up really wide and then being really on point over that rise, and then gathering himself and doing a little hop to get over the crest of the next rise. And that just allows him to get on the brakes and his tires on the ground earlier, as opposed to this guy who chooses to do a little huck off that rise. And you can see he just has less time with his tires on the ground to do his braking and get turned. And he comes in with way more speed. So it's no surprise he blows the catch. Then there's a super loose, steep left-hander that we saw that guy slide out on. And again, this is really hard to get the braking right and get turned, and you have to commit to a really narrow catch at the bottom. And then you're off the brakes and you get sent straight into one of the most hectic rock gardens I've ever seen, because you can carry so much entry speed into here, but I don't know, it's so mank and jank and junky in there. I can't even break down the lines that well for you guys. I blind sent it in here and took a horrible line. There's a few things going on, but it's like high risk, high reward sort of deal. A lot of riders had moments in here, and a different entry line by this guy. And the whole mind space coming into this stage is tough because it's such a short stage, but you can also like lose the race if you mess up. And this rock garden is definitely like a place where things can go wrong, as we see for a few riders here just getting hung up in the pro women's field. Because if you're offline and not committed, just look at the rocks. They're huge. So they can definitely put a stop to your momentum if you're not committed enough. But it's also really scary to be committed in here. Yeah, there's like two exits. There's, between the trees right here, you can kind of hold straight like Ella does here. I don't know which one's faster. They both seem scary. But the moment that was insane was Simona having a full crash in there. Someone actually did run out in front of her line, but she managed to win the race still with that crash while being on super tight margins. And then it comes in here to the last two corners. This is super steep. It doesn't really come across in the footage, but it is loose, steep, And yeah, the corners are quite tight. So we see the riders doing some setups, getting loose. And then in the left-hander at the bottom, there's an inside and outside. The inside seems like it would be the easy option, but you really do have to slow down aggressively and get turned. Over the crest is really hard to judge, and there's some stepped out routes that you have to take into account. You can't just like let off the brakes once you drop in off that inside line. Then we've got a nice foot plant by the cube rider, who also sets up for the inside. And then this next section into the finish has some steps, and then there's this sick kind of shark fin out into the finish area, which was really rad to have for an enduro race. Kind of felt like a bigger downhill race. This whole night stage was really sick. This track was insane. It was a really fun way to finish off the race weekend, even though the riders may not have liked it. And then we got Dan Booker here coming down with a super sick full inside, fully drifting off the lip of that shark fin, scrubbing it kind of into like a Bren dog landing. That was so badass. Jesse getting all rowdy in here. Like, the guy gets so out of shape, but always seems to hold it together and looks so pinned. And then Slawomir, I know I'm not saying his name right, but yeah, comes down to take the win and the overall. Charles Murray misses out by like, I think it was 0.05 of a second. Kind of a heartbreak. But that's the race here in La Thuile. This video is out late, but if you watched it, thanks for that. Hit me up on Patreon. I'll catch you guys in the next one.